Damn.
Just another reason to have an old car. You can put your steering gearbox in a saddlebag. This thing weighs a ton though. I thought I was gonna show up without that bag. Oh my God, my hair. That's better. All right, everybody, so we are out here with the Fury again. And I've got it to a point now where I'm gonna start putting the spark plug wires together. Now, these spark plug wires are a little vibrant. I thought they were black, but no big deal. So let's build some spark plug wires. Let's get to it. The busier we get, faster we get it done. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do here is pull out spark plug number 1 to determine if this thing is in fact a TDC. The crank pulley says it is, but the crank pulley can be 180 degrees out. So I just wanna confirm real quick that this piston is at the top, and then we can go about our business here, and it appears that it is. So the next step is to pop the distributor cap off, and I believe that the rotor is pointed right here. That is cylinder number 1. That's number 8436572. And hopefully that's right, because I got it wrong last time and this thing was pinging and backfiring like crazy trying to start. And I'm fitting these wires to go to the specific spots. If it's off one, it's not a big deal, but if I get them like 180 out, then I'll probably have to get another set of wires. That wouldn't be fun. All right, so I got to the point where I think I want to install the exhaust manifolds first. So I wanted to go through how these bolt holes that go to the exhaust manifold studs go into the water jacket, which is a fantastic design. So what I did, excuse me, I took these studs and wrapped them in Teflon tape, and then you can see this pink stuff right here is Permatex high-tech gasket sealant. High-tack gasket sealant. So what I'll do is I'll take a little dab of this and just put it down in the hole. This stuff is a mess. It's like super thin, but it also is like really, really stringy. I just take it and work it down in there, and that's good for that one. Do not spill that. Take your stud and start it. And then these probably aren't gonna wanna go all the way home, so then what you can do is put a nut on it. So the idea here is that the stud isn't torqued yet, right? It's just in there. So we need to torque it so that it stays when you try to take these fasteners on and off. So you put the next nut on. This is an old trick. So you get these two butted up against each other. Get them really tight. Actually, I use box end. Never use the open end, not the box end. So you'll get these really tight together, and then you can use them to walk the stud in further. But that stud is in there now. So now just loosen the first nut off. And then take the second nut off. Why am I working on this thing off of an engine stand, you ask? Well, that's because we have 2 blown up Z engines and a Civic engine sitting on all the stands that we have. We have 3 stands in here, none are available. That's life with Nissans. So, as you can see, in a moment, there it is. That stud is in there. There's some Permatex gasket and sealant on the back side of it and Teflon tape that will not leak. It's not pretty, but it'll also be covered up. So, we got one done. Let them go. I can be pretty sure that my spark plug routing is good. I hate these plugs coming up the back of the engine, so I'm gonna do some shady stuff to keep them from doing that, so they all 4 come up together. Let's build some spark plug wires now. All right, so I have this thing set up pretty good where these wires are all coming through kind of in the order that they are on the engine. So the next step here is to figure out where the pain is. The rotor is pointed. Okay, so the rotor right now is pointed almost directly at that clip. So we have number 1 right here, and it needs to go to a 90-degree boot right there. As you can see, it's a little long. So what we need to do is figure out if we find any home for it back here, which kinda not really. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it up to go kind of back behind the distributor there, and then I'm gonna cut it to a length I need right here. So take one of these, put it in there, and get an idea exactly how long it needs to be. And you wanna cut it about a 1/2 inch too long. So I need to cut it right about there. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then we'll revisit. These are actually very sensitive. This is a graphite coral wire, so it's very easy to cut right through that thing. You wanna make sure you don't damage it. The next step is to fold this thing back, and then when it gets crimped into here, it completes the circuit basically, right? So it'll be crimped to the metal. So next step is to crimp this. Now, as you can see, it is crimped on there. There's still some fiberglass strands hanging out, but what you do is you fold that piece of graphite, that center core, along the back edge here, so it's actually crimped right underneath the top of this. And then you gotta spray it down, pull your boot over top of it, and you're good to go. So let's do 7 more. These V8s are such a pain compared to the 4 cylinders, because there's 2 of everything. Kind of. Not really, I made that up. Spark plug wires didn't turn out quite as pretty as I wanted them to, but they're definitely better than the ones that were on there before. Those were all over the place. I got the heater hoses run, I have the coolant feed and return on it, and got some pneumatics run, I got the PCV put on it. So honestly, aside from the fan, I think this thing is ready to go back in the car now. I don't think there's anything left to put on it. Once it's in there, I'll have to do some work with the transmission linkage here and the throttle. I think the throttle is pretty well spelled out, but they had some really silly business on here before. So basically what I got to do is go reference the carb that's on Dad's car and try to understand exactly what's up with this one and why it's like that, and what I can do to make it better, because before it was kind of messy. So anyway, I think that's about it. It's ready to go back on the car now. The car is almost ready, but there are a couple things I want to do first, and one of them is to definitely change out that steering gearbox. It is leaking like crazy on the back side. I'm not exactly sure from where, but it doesn't really matter. I don't feel like rebuilding it. I have a new one to put in it, so let's get a new one in there, just be done with it. And then later on, at some point, this power steering pump's gonna have to get replaced too, so I didn't really bother with, you know, repainting that or making it look any better. So thought today was going to be the day to get this baby in there, but one fiasco has led to another fiasco. And as you can see, the gearbox is out, and I went and got a new one today. And if you look, obviously this is the old one. The distance between this hole, there's a stud on the car, and this surface here on the new one is much smaller, right? I mean, there's over an inch here, and there's, you know, that's 1.5 fingernails there, and this one is just about 3/4 of a fingernail. So anyway, this surface right here is too big, and that surface hits this surface, which is why it's all scratched up, and it prevents these surfaces here and here from making contact, and the steering gearbox from sitting flush up against its mounting surface. So until that's in there, that can't be. So YouTubers, welcome back. Today the goal is to get that engine into that car or bust. Man, I am so sick of not being able to drive this thing, and that thing has got to go in today. So right now the car is outside with the power steering gearbox out. I got the right one, I got the accessories for it, which most of them come with fittings. This new one did not. No idea why. I didn't take the fittings off the old one because I've never replaced one before. So I went to Advance, and the guys there always help me and Dad get everything we need done. They helped me dig the core up, get the parts that I needed off of it right there straight away, and I got that stuff here. So now we're gonna go outside, get to the car, get the steering gearbox put into it, try to get it rigged up enough where it can at least drive in here so I can finish it. And as soon as that's in, that goes in. So sick of that thing not being in there. So let's get started. Let's go. All right, so now that we're out here, there's going to be like 2,000 trips back and forth between here and the garage. But this is the steering gear box in this old parallelogram steering system. I don't know if a lot of people know how this works. Some people kind of seem like, you know, their generation, and me included, kind of just deals with steering racks where a yoke comes in and a pinion just hits a bar that has teeth on it, and as the pinion gear turns, the bar just slides back and forth, and it's essentially this part here. These are a little different where your hydraulics are here and here. And then it's a worm gear that turns a gear on, I guess what you consider the pinion shaft here, down to a pitman arm, and then the pitman arm swings back and forth right here and moves this whole system side to side, and then your tie rods are on the outer end of it. We'll just have to pound through this with a time lapse, and I'll have to do some editing to cut out the dead spots, but for now, what I gotta do is get this thing mounted because it's still just kind of laying there. Then I need to get the I think it's the yoke, get that in, and then get the steering rack put back in the car. It's currently laying on the driver's seat. So let's get this baby hooked up. Let's roll. So let's set this pin a little further. There we go. Now, okay, you can just go down there. So to what I was speaking to earlier, these fittings here, I did not realize this new pump came with these. So these fittings, you know, one goes here and is a return to the power steering pump reservoir, and this other one is the one that's on the ground now that I hope I can find. A little rock never destroyed anything mechanical. This is the feed. So these were, I left them on the old pump because I thought the new one would come with them. It did not, so went back and got them this morning. Greg helped me dig the core up at Advance and get my stuff back and help me take it all apart. So thank you, Greg. Now let's get this stuff tossed back on here and keep moving. Finally have what Plymouth called steering in the 1960s. It's pretty loose compared to today's standards. We have really precise steering, as everybody knows. Even our worst steering is better than this, but this thing is way tighter than it used to be. So I'm happy with it, and I think the only thing left to do now is get this car back in the shop and then button up a couple of small items. Otherwise, let's get this thing back in the garage, get an engine in it, and see if we can start this pig today. Holy cow, man. Engine's back in. It was a little bit of a fiasco. It wasn't too terribly frustrating, but it wasn't exactly easy either. Once I got the dowel pins lined up, it kind of just slammed itself in place, but getting to that point kind of had to sacrifice my valve covers a little bit. There's a couple dings in them, but that thing looks pretty in there. Definitely makes the rest of the car look even worse, but I mean, got the factory overspray on the exhaust manifolds. I know that'll be gone in like 10 minutes, but I had to do it just to say that I did it because I wanted this engine to look as close to factory as possible, obviously aside from those stupid spark plug wires. But if you look, it's made it up against the transmission. I got all the bolts started so that I can at least get it up where I need it to be. It's set on its mount pedestals. It's set up against transmission. All that's left to do now is button it up, get the alternator put back, the radiator put back, and then the exhaust. I don't know what else is in the trunk here that needs looked at. Starter, fan, radiator, and exhaust. So not really all that far to go. So what I'm gonna do now is try to get all that buttoned up so that we can take it for a drive. I am excited, man. This has been definitely a different road for me. Usually Hondas aren't that exciting to rebuild, and I'm sure for other people it would be the opposite. Guys that are used to this, that build a Honda, it'd be, you know, they wouldn't say it's exciting because they hate 4 cylinders, but it'd be different. For me, this was exciting because I'm used to tiny little 4 cylinders, and to rebuild a big slobbering V8, even though it won't make nearly as much power, maybe torque as my Hondas, it is still definitely cool to see this side of things. And like I said earlier, just to see where technology was and where it is now. So next step is to just get everything put back in and get stuff like, you know, these lines here, I put those on with the engine out of the car. They're clearly way too long for where they need to be. So trim those down, get that stuff set back up, and then, you know, look at things like this that I can make work for now. Like the return hose here has these crazy long clamps on it. So I'll get the right clamps for that at some point. But for now, I'm just gonna make it work. The pump looks like trash because I'll end up replacing it at some point because it's got that crazy epoxy on the side and I think it leaks. So, you know, just stuff like that. But for now, the hard part's done. It's finally done. So let's get this turd Ferguson button back up and go for a drive. I cannot wait, man. Let's do this. This has been a little bit more of a struggle than I thought it would be, but we're making progress. So I wanted to show a couple of things real quick that have been a real pain. Linkage right here goes to the transmission to kind of tell what your throttle demand is. So this is not at all how this is supposed to be set up. I only have one spring, and the throttle cable and all this bracketry here is different because this is a Holley performance carburetor. So what I did is I just put a little cotter pin in there and then put a jam bolt here so that this remains loose so that the throttle can hit it. This thing's so tight. So the throttle can hit it and then push on it. It feels a lot better in the car than it looks out here, but for now, that's how it's gonna be. So hopefully it works, or we'll send this thing careening into a ditch where it should have gone in the first place, but we'll see. So let's keep going.